Welcome to the Sober Strength Podcast, the show that helps you optimize your relationship with alcohol and elevate your fitness. I'm your host, Jesse Karajat, United States Marine veteran, health and fitness coach, and mental health advocate. Thank you for showing up for yourself today. And we've got an awesome episode. Jen Hirst joined us for an amazing conversation. Jen is the founder of Lighthouse Sobriety, which is a community for women, whether they are seeking to be alcohol-free or sober-curious. She caters to people who want to remove alcohol or moderate their drinking. Doesn't matter, but her goal is to help women with simple daily habits. And her advice and her tips and her motivation are applicable not just to women, to men as well. She's a sobriety coach, a speaker, and a very successful content creator. We'll link to all of her resources, websites, profiles in the episode notes. But amongst the many things that we talked about, of course, we dove into her personal story of transformation, which you have to hear. She describes herself as a recovering perfectionist and used to use alcohol to cope with stress and just manage, the difficulties of daily life. And I absolutely and thoroughly enjoyed my conversation with Jen. I think she's incredible and she has so much to offer, and she's such a strong communicator. So I really hope you enjoy the conversation and you get value from it. And without further ado, welcome to the Sober Strength Podcast, the powerful Jen Hirst. Let's go deep. Jen, I know that and I know this from your website, but I know that your sobriety date is April 24th, 2013. So congratulations on, 11 years.
11 years, yeah.
11 years. That's incredible. First question for you, just take me back to what was happening in your life around that time, and then maybe even what happened or why April 24th, 2013?
Yeah. And it's so crazy to think back over these past 11 years and I think many people can attest to this, that you were living kind of two different lives. And I sometimes can't believe that it happened and how I felt around that time. And I think really what it stems back to was I was under immense amounts of stress. I was using alcohol to manage my anxiety, and over working full-time, doing freelance full-time, I was planning my wedding all by myself, and it just kind of came about right after my wedding day. I was trying to do everything. I was drinking to manage my anxiety because I was thinking that alcohol would help my anxiety. It would help to calm me down and let me let loose, have more fun. And especially when I was working all the time, it was just my way to just unwind. And so it just gradually increased and increased where I just needed alcohol to feel normal. And in this period of time, right after my wedding, no one knew. And that's a real basis of my story, is that looking at pictures of me around this time, I didn't have a lot of pictures in the year and a half journey from me understanding what was happening, really, refusing to look at myself as quote unquote an alcoholic. I was trying to fight this in every way that I could. Of that labels prevented me from getting help for so many years, because if I had that label, what would that do to my image? And so I did this in secret. No one knew about it. I drank at home. I was high functioning. And all of these things, I still had my job. I still had this until I didn't, until I lost my job, until I got my second DWI, all of these things. And I started to lose things. And so in this year and a half journey, I was actively seeking, and it was after my wedding day where a couple days after, where I kind of collapsed. And so that's why I show kind of before and after pictures. My before picture was my wedding day. And it's a day that so many people that you remember for the rest of your life. And I can't remember most of it. I was there, but mentally I was gone. I was drinking around the clock. I was taking Adderall to try to get stuff done. And no one knew. No one knew what was going on. I hid everything. I put on a good smile. I put on like depuffing to hide the bags under my eyes. And a couple days later, I was expected to go back to work and I just couldn't do it. And I started drinking around the clock. I didn't hide it. And you can imagine what my husband was thinking. Oh my gosh, I can't. Like, what's going on? I just married this woman and now she's a full-blown alcoholic. And so began this 1.5 year journey into seeking sobriety, going to my first AA meeting. Because, 12, 13 years ago, there wasn't the immense amount of programs and community and coaches and sober curiosity, all of the wonderful things that are taking place today. There wasn't that back then. It was AA and that was it. And I was so scared to do that. And it was entering that, realizing that wasn't helping, getting a sponsor, going into my first outpatient, that wasn't working. Then eventually, almost 10 months later, going into my first inpatient, that didn't help, going back to inpatient, seeking other forms of alcohol, like rubbing alcohol, mouthwash, all of these different forms to hide the shame that I felt of going into a liquor store. Getting my second DWI, being on house arrest, all of these things where I had to blow into something that took your picture to make sure you weren't drinking, all of these things until I really, in that month of April in 2013, I was kicked out of my house. My husband had set boundaries. He was going to Al-Anon, all of these things. We were trying to work on our relationship. And I was staying with my parents and drinking mouthwash on the regular. And I really felt myself shutting down. I had to really take it. I'm really stubborn. And if you tell me I can't do something, I'm going to find a way to do something. I was trying to make alcohol fit this square peg into a round hole. I was trying to figure a way that I could manage this and I could make it work. And I could still have all the things. And the fact that I couldn't do it, I would just beat myself up. And so it took me thinking that I was going to go into cardiac arrest, because at this period of time, this 1.5 year journey of me actively seeking sobriety. So if there's anyone here that is questioning their relationship with alcohol, or in this journey in early sobriety, and you have slips, you have periods of sobriety and you have slips, I guess I just want to say that I was there too. I tried for 1.5 years until I finally got it, until that April 23rd, where my parents, I was actually blacked out at my parents' office. My dad took me to his office. I apparently blacked out there, and I came to, and they took me to detox. They actually took me to the hospital first, because they didn't know what to do with me. And I came to, and the first words that I said to my mother when I came to out of my blackout were, "Help me." And I think that was the first time I actually asked for help. I was so scared to ask for help because of what that would do. Again, to my image, I didn't want to burden people with what I was going through. And I think this whole fear of what other people would think of someone who got good grades. I was raised in a good family. I'm a perfectionist parents. My parents rarely drank. My grandfather was an alcoholic. So the fact that it could happen to me and that I could achieve all these things, but I couldn't do this, I felt like my ego was so high that it would just ruin everything. But at that point, it really was, for me, life and death. I really felt that I didn't know how many days I had left with the amount that I was drinking and what it was doing to my heart. And so on a spectrum, we have gray area drinking, we have occasional drinking, then we have, all of these different variables of where you could put yourself on the spectrum. I was in my case, severe, where I was getting severe shakes, severe withdrawals. And I kind of came to in detox. They took me to detox, and it was there that I made the decision to stop. I had court the next day. I didn't have any money. I was virtually homeless because my parents didn't want me back there. The people who loved me unconditionally didn't know what to do with me.
And how long had you been married at that point on April 23rd?
April 23rd, 1.5 years.
1.5 years. Okay. So you're with your parents. Assuming your husband is informed that you're a detox but you're basically on your own. Where did you lose your job during that journey?
Yeah, I lost my job February. It's so crazy that you can remember these dates. I can't remember what I came into the room, going into the kitchen. I'm like, what did I come in here for? But I can remember the date that I was laid off from my job. It was February 8th, 2013. And it was for my drinking because I wasn't showing up. And yeah, so I was laid off from my job. I didn't have a job at that point.
Got you. Sorry to interrupt you there, but there's so much to unpack that I want to ask you about. So you mentioned certain words like stress, anxiety, perfectionism, things like that. Were you, if you think back, like reflecting growing up, maybe adolescence, middle school, high school, did you always have an anxious disposition?
And thinking back, I didn't think I did. I think I kind of developed it. I think because my parents were perfectionists, and again, they placed this value on image and performing and doing well. I don't know if they knew that or not. And I know all of our parents are trying to do the best that they can. I know I am, and I'm not perfect. But the fact that I felt like if I made a mistake, I was going to disappoint them, that I had to do well, I had to excel, that B's weren't acceptable, I had to get A's. And so I think that created a lot of pressure on myself and this need to appear like I had it all together. And so that, I think, created anxiety, but I didn't actually understand it and get treated for it until, 2008, 2009, when I was having debilitating anxiety. But at that time, my drinking rapidly increased. So I'm at the place now where I'm doing all this work and self-discovery of, did I even have anxiety? Or was it the alcohol creating the anxiety later? So as a kid, I don't really remember feeling anxious. But I would get scared before games. But I think everybody gets scared before games. I would get nervous. Yeah.
What sport? Oh. What'd you play?
Basketball, softball, volleyball, golf.
Okay. What didn't you play? It sounds like you played everything.
Yeah, I know.
Did you drink? Did you party in high school?
I had my first drink at 15. I wouldn't say it was every weekend, but definitely I had some drinks in high school and definitely in college.
A theme that you mentioned was that you were able to hide your drinking, it felt like, and you were good at it. As I'm talking to you, there's a level of confidence and intellect. And normally when someone is confident and has high intellect, they can manipulate pretty well. Do you think that you were able to hide it for so long because of the way that you're wired and people just can't tell when maybe you're struggling?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think I was just so used to appearing that everything was great. I would get so clever in the ways that I would hide it. I would rub peanut butter on my teeth to hide the smell, like all of the lengths that I would go to try to hide it. But I think I was so, like you said, I was kind of conditioned to appear that everything was great, that for me, it made it quite easy for me to hide it. And again, not even my husband knew, not even my fiance, until I actually didn't care anymore. And I just let it all. I didn't hide it anymore. And I just drank all 24/7.
So bring us back. So April 24th, sounds like you had court. What were you going to court for? Was that DUI related?
Yeah, my second DWI.
Second DUI. Okay. So bring us back to that period. So it's April 24th. You're in court. Let's go from there.
Yeah. And I actually wasn't able to go to court because I was in detox, and I blew a .34 when I entered. Now that could have been higher. I don't know. When I first got there. And I know people have blown higher. And now I know this isn't a competition, but that really scared me because I had been drinking like that for well over 2 years. And how many other times did I cheat death? Because there were so many other times that I drank probably way more. I mean, and blacking out was a daily occurrence for me at that point. And I remember hearing another woman, it's so vivid, these memories of she blew a 0.38. And I remember sitting there in detox, and it's not a very comfortable experience. You don't have anything to do. You just kind of sit there with your anxiety and your withdrawals, and you just sit and you think. And it was there on the bed that I looked, it was kind of like I had an out of body experience where I just looked at myself and I'm like, what are you doing? And it just kind of, everything became clear. And I think I had suffered enough and I've lost enough where I finally gave in and I said, I'm done. I am so freaking done. I cannot do this anymore. And at that point, I did not want to drink. I still wanted to make alcohol work before then. And at that point, I was so done. I did not want it ever again.
And you never had a moment like that prior to then? Wow.
And I think, and that's, the brilliance of Matthew Perry, rest in peace. But I remember watching a segment with him, and he explained it so perfectly, is that if you want sobriety, two things have to be true. Number one, you have to really want it. No one else. It has to come from you. And you got to be ready. And I think when I entered my first inpatient stay in August of 2012 at the Hazelden, I really wanted sobriety. I'm like, this is what I'm supposed to do. But I was not ready. I still had to do some field research. I still had an inkling that, okay, I'm just going to drink one more time.
Well, it sounds like you still had a job at that time, and you hadn't gotten your second DUI, so some circumstances could have impacted that final decision as well, right?
Well, and that's why I feel like I can find gratitude. And I when people used to say in meetings that, oh, I'm a grateful alcoholic, I'm like, BS. That's a load of, like, how can I be grateful for this? But all of these things that I experienced, that any one of us experienced, all of these consequences eventually led to me finally internally deciding that I was done. And that's why we can seek external things. And I think all of these external things can help us from, going to programs, doing all this, working out, all of that. But eventually the decision is internal. It was a switch. And all of those things happened to get me to that point where I was mentally done. So that's where I can find the gratitude in it, of I had to experience that to eventually be done with alcohol, and I did not want it anymore, and I had to suffer. And after my inpatient stay, I was not done. It really rapidly increased, and I suffered many more consequences in that 6-month, 8-month period to where I got sober. But I had to experience that. I had to keep pushing it. And I hope by sharing my story, by coaching other women, sharing about the dangers of alcohol, but also what sobriety can bring, of all the benefits of, holy smoke, like, this is where you get the get to mindset of all of the things that we get to do because we don't have alcohol holding us back. I hope you don't have to reach those lows and experience that, but sometimes you do. And again, you have to really want it, and you got to be ready. And I just wasn't ready. And so for anyone entering my programs or curious about going alcohol free, sometimes we really want this, but we're just not ready. And I want to say that's okay. Go out and do some more field research. Try to make this work. And if you can find a way to make it work, like, my hat's off to you. Congratulations. Well, I mean, I don't want to drink alcohol, but if you can find a way to make that work in your life, congratulations. But go out and do that field research until you get to that point where you are ready to do this. And you want to do that. And I hope I can get you there faster.
Hey, everybody, it's your host, Jesse Karajak. Quick interruption of this podcast. Look, there's a multitude of ways that we all can and should look to improve our drinking habits, right? And we talk about them all the time on this show. Things like getting in a group, being honest with people, focusing on sleep and nutrition and exercise. I can go on and on. But what most people don't know, and frankly I didn't know, is that there is an FDA-approved medication that you can start taking. It's easily accessible and private and affordable, and you can start taking it today and start experiencing powerful benefits within days. And again, I've done it. I'm blown away by it, and I want to get the word out so that as many people as possible know that is an option that they can and should use. So there's a company called Or Health. That's OAR Health. You can text STRENGTH, that's STRENGTH, to 710-710. Again, that's STRENGTH to 710-710. You'll get a secure link. You can fill out an assessment, and if the medication is right for you, a licensed medical professional will prescribe it for you and privately, discreetly have it shipped to your home. You'll be one of over 35,000 people that have decided to take back control of their drinking through Or Health, and 76% of Or Health members report drinking less within just 2 weeks. So if you've been struggling, know that there is an incredibly powerful option out there for you. So again, STRENGTH to 710-710 to see if it's a fit. And now back to the show. Yeah, amen. Well said. Well said. I think an inpatient experience, just for anyone that maybe just isn't aware of what that experience is like, or maybe has just heard of it secondhand, what is that experience like? Maybe pick one of those experiences or just summarize all of them. But how did that impact you, and just kind of share a little bit about what that is?
Yeah, I went to two at Hazelden, so now Hazelden Betty Ford, and then my third was at the retreat in Wayzata, Minnesota, which I highly recommend. And I loved all three of the experiences, and I think they definitely had an impact on my journey. And the last one, I went to treatment after I made that decision because court ordered. I felt like people would want me to go to the inpatient because how are people supposed to trust me this time? How did they know that this time was different? I knew it, but I had said so many things. I now had to walk the talk. I now had to prove it through my actions of going to treatment, going to meetings, getting my sponsor, going to court, getting my probation officer, doing house arrest, doing my day in jail, all of those things. I had to just shut up and just do it and just follow the next right thing. I loved inpatient treatment. I was so scared. And I think people are so scared to do that, of taking time away from family and your job. But I wasn't going to have a job. I wasn't going to have a family unless I did that. And so I prevented doing that for many months because I thought I was going to lose my job. And what was that going to say if I just took 30 days off of work? What were people going to think? But it was some of the best experiences of my life. And you get to just focus on yourself. You don't have any other outside responsibilities, but you get to focus on yourself. You get to be surrounded by every single person there is in the recovery in some way, shape, or form. I got to meet other women who share the same experiences, where I felt less shame over my DWIs, where I could finally say me too. I didn't realize other women did these things, where I could move my body and just eat delicious food. And again, it's just to focus on yourself. And so I highly recommend it. If you've tried and you keep slipping or you just can't get it, definitely look into, there's so many out there, but look into a 30-day stay and where you can focus on yourself. And there's so many different forms, but it was some of the best experiences of my life. Again, they were incredibly transformative in my journey. Amazing. Amazing. And a quick question on the term alcoholic. Which is a specific framework, right? The Alcoholics Anonymous. Is the AA framework something that you recommend today? The great thing about today is that everyone gets to choose how they recover. They get to choose their sobriety and what sobriety looks like for them. And 13 years ago, 12 years ago, 11 years ago, that was the only way. And so I thought that was what I was supposed to do. But I was in AA for about 5 years, 4 to 5 years, until I came out of the sober closet. I highly recommend the 12-step program, but it's not something I practice today. But again, people get to choose their sobriety. And I think that's what's so cool. I was moving my body. I was connecting with other women. I was sharing my journey online. I was doing it in this different way, but I didn't know if that was okay. But I think it's definitely helped so many women or people on their journey. And I think that's what works for you. Congratulations, and keep doing that.
How do you kind of cater to everybody and coach everybody? And I'm assuming, I should ask this first, you're open to people saying, hey, I've had an issue with alcohol in the past. I'm not ready to cut it out completely. I want to go through this other door, this kind of middle door.
The third door, right?
The third door, as they say. Yeah.
I think it's just acceptance of where people are at in their journey. That I think when we look at alcohol or start this journey forever can deter us in so many ways of thinking of removing alcohol forever. But I like to say, take forever off the table and commit to 30 days. I like to give people smaller goals, and 30 days I also think is way too short to experience some of the benefits. I always say 100 days, if not even 6 months to a year, to really experience all of the benefits that going alcohol-free can provide. But I fully support where people are at in their journey, and knowing that for me, in that 1.5 year journey of trying to make alcohol work and failing, that I can give that woman, and we are a women's community, I can give that woman some compassion and just sympathize and empathize with her and guide her along of, hey, that's okay. You're going to get there when you get there. And either path you choose, we're going to be there to support you, because that's what we are, is we're here to support and encourage and motivate each other to explore your relationship with alcohol and see where that takes you. And knowing that you don't have to decide today, you don't have to look at forever. You just need to stay focused on today and taking care of yourself. Let's set a goal for you and why that's important to you, and give you a tracker on ways to feel better and feel your best in this decision. And I love that today we can look at this as a wellness decision, that you don't need to be an alcoholic to question your relationship with alcohol. You can just choose to do that and do a 30-day challenge, go alcohol free for 30 days, just to be curious of how good can you feel. And that's what I like to ask women, and to get curious, how good can I feel if I take this away and I focus on adding movement, focusing on adding some protein, adding some morning sunlight, all of those things. And then after those 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, then ask yourself, is this something you want to continue, or do you want to go back out? Okay, if you go back out, let us know what you think. What do you experience? I think it's all just getting curious and taking it day by day on how you feel. Is this something, especially after a period of time like 30, 60, 90 days away from alcohol, to go back out, you're going to feel that. And how do I want to feel? Is this something I want to continue? Just like I had, we went to an ice cream store the other day. I don't really have ice cream anymore because my stomach doesn't like it. And so of course I'm like, oh, but that Oreo ice cream looks so good. So I had some with my kids, and then 2 hours later, I looked like I was pregnant. I'm like, this is why. I was going to do a reel about it. I'm like, this is why. I'm not saying ice cream's bad, but I don't like feeling like my stomach's going to explode most of the time. So I'm not saying I'm going to cut it out, ice cream out completely, but more often than not, I'm going to choose not to, because of how I feel after. And I think that's a question. When I was thinking about this the other day, of some of the main things to think about in sobriety, how am I going to feel after? Is it worth the 15 minutes of euphoria for the 2 to 3 days of withdrawal?
Right.
It's just not, I want to feel good. I want to have energy. I want to feel well rested. All of those matter more to me than 15 minutes of fake happiness. Yeah.
And what I love about your message, and your message is consistent in everything that you do, is that really and these are my words, not yours, but it's my summary. It's like the mission is to feel better. The mission is to be happy. The mission is to feel proud of our lives, of which, like, removing alcohol is a big component to do that. But what you talk about is, it's not just about removing alcohol, it's adding in all these other life-giving things like exercise, nutrition, journaling, meditation, getting outdoors and walking. And I like that because I think if people that are in the space of helping people with alcohol aren't careful, they just make all of the messaging just about alcohol, which at the end of the day is a molecular compound that you ingest that alters your state of mind and over time chronically can, impact your health, right? I mean, I like to think about like, let's minimize it while also giving it the respect that it deserves in the moment to help people get rid of it. But what is the broader goal? And the broader goal, the things we just mentioned. But I just want to make one comment about what you said, that you always recommend at least 30 days, but it sounds like you're advocating for longer periods. Would you agree that really the benefits can happen 60, 90, 120 days? And if you just cut it short in 30 days and go right back to drinking, you might not, your brain still hasn't even readjusted to the damage from alcohol.
Yeah. And I love Dry January, Dry July, Sober October, because it offers people an in to try it because it's so popular. But at the same time, you're just experiencing early sobriety for 30. And so people are just getting the glimpse of it, of going through the withdrawals. And you're not, like you said, giving your brain enough time to recalibrate, to experience that natural dopamine that hits in those 100, 120, 6-month ranges, is that you can find happiness and joy in those simple things of going outside, going for a walk, being in nature, moving your body. All of those things is that we're just experiencing kind of the hard part of sobriety. I always say the first 30 days are the hardest, or the absolute hardest. I'm not saying all the other days are not hard, but those first 30 days require so much. You're going through cravings, you're going through your thoughts, all of those things, is that you don't really get to experience the good stuff. Yeah. So if we can just stretch that, like 100 days, I love the 100, just the number 100. I think 100 days is a fantastic goal. Knowing that it might not be perfect, that's okay. I never strive perfection. I just want you to keep going. And so if we can get to that point, I'm not saying like, okay, I'm cured, everything's great, but why not? Again, just be curious of how good you can feel in that period of time.
Hey everybody, sorry to interrupt this episode. It's your host, Jesse Karajet, and I've got a quick favor to ask. If you're enjoying this episode, would you please consider subscribing to the show and leaving a rating and review? That simple act goes such a long way to help us grow the show, reach more people, and make a positive impact in their lives. So thank you for considering, and now back to the show. Yeah, I love that. A big tell for me, there's this, I don't know, is it an emotion? I don't know, you tell me, but there's this word nostalgia, which when I feel nostalgia, I feel joy. I feel an appreciation and gratitude for the past. It could be triggered from a song, a smell, a sight, etc. But I've found that when I'm actively drinking, nostalgia almost goes away. And a tell for me as to how healthy is my brain is if I go for, let's just say, a morning walk, which I love doing. And let's be real, if you're hungover or drinking, you're probably not going on that morning walk. So it's probably good that you're out there in the first place. But I've found that if I go for a morning walk or even an evening walk, if I feel memories, if I feel nostalgia, if I'm present and listening and I can hear a bird, I know that sounds corny, but like if I look at the mountains, I'm in Colorado, and I feel something, my brain is in a healthy place. If I don't, it's most likely because my brain is unhealthy. If you're aware of your environment and how you're feeling and responding to your environment, it can really help you and put up some pink and red flags around your drinking. Yeah. It's just my experience there.
And I even think in early sobriety, in inpatient, I went on a ton of walks. And I felt so much at peace, and I had so much clarity. It helped me move through all of the things that I was going through, and to feel connected that something out there, that everything was going to be okay. Something about the sun, and again, Hazelden is right in the woods, it's on the water, all of these things. It was so beautiful that I somehow felt that everything was going to be okay. So for women just starting out, for people just starting out, I encourage people to take those walks, to think about things, to move your body, to get out in nature, to get that natural vitamin D, to start to produce that dopamine naturally, right away, because it's going to help you move through all of the things that you're going through in a healthy way. And it's going to help you feel, but now it's not going to cure everything, but it's going to allow you to process everything that's going on and to get you out of that environment, to get you moving, get that natural sunlight. All of those things are going to help you. Again, sleep, it's going to help you, help your anxiety, all of those things. It's a really fantastic domino effect of just what a simple walk can do.
Love it. Love it. I know that you have 2 kiddos, but you achieved sobriety before you became a mom. How has being a mom, and how will it continue to motivate you to stay the course?
Yeah, and I'm so grateful that I was able to do that. I know many people don't have that opportunity, but I always say my kids are the reason I got sober, and I stay sober so I never lose them. They are my greatest why. They're my greatest teachers. They're some of the, I mean, especially to practice patience, which I am not good at. But to lead by example for them and to show them what being alcohol free can do for you, how to process emotions. And I think being sober, being alcohol free has offered me so many teaching lessons for them of how to process emotions, how to coach them to feel emotions.
When your children are high school aged, if one of them or both of them were to come to you and say, Mommy, I went to a party, people were drinking, what should I do about that? How would you respond? What advice would you give? And then also, kind of a side question, knowing your own history and background, what are some things that you'll be looking out for to make sure that you can keep your kiddos on the right track?
Yeah. And I think it's something that worries me, but I'm also starting the conversation now with my kids because I don't think they're ever too young to start the conversation. I think there's certain things that you don't need to mention at certain ages, but they're already experiencing it in the things they see, the things they hear, the songs they listen to. They're already being fed this, and from a very young age, and I'm very keen to now point it out in every single kids movie. And so my whole point as a mother is to just open the conversation, to start talking about it, knowing I'm not going to come at it from a judgmental point of view, but I'm going to definitely talk about it and what it can do to you, what people use it for, and I can also share my experience and my past with it, but let them have their own experience. If they want to do that, they can do that. But I also don't want them to do that because everybody else is doing it. That they're free to make their own choice, that they don't have to do that to fit in, that it's okay to stand out. It's okay to choose this choice. But if you do indulge, I'm going to be there for you. I can pick you up. I can do all that. But I'm going to, again, just let them experience it, but also make sure they know the dangers involved when doing so.
Yeah. And I think you and I are both fortunate raising kids today, and any parent listening is fortunate in that it seems to be most of the statistics say that drinking is on the decline in youth and in high school and in college. And that's a good thing. And hopefully it stays that way. I'm going to get to that question because I think it's important. So I mentioned, offline before the show that I wanted to talk to you about something called cross addiction. And I have some confusion if it's called cross addiction or transfer addiction, which
I think it could be called either one, cross addiction or transfer addiction. I usually refer to it as cross addiction.
Okay. So what is it, and why should someone who's trying to optimize their relationship with alcohol remove it? Why should they be aware of it? And how can that awareness help them?
Yeah, so cross addiction is really replacing one addiction for another. So for me, I mean, these can go into areas such as exercise. I know food is a really big one. Shopping, sex, gambling, your phone, work, other drugs like marijuana, medications, caffeine, cigarettes. So we're really seeking out that dopamine is what we're going for. And maybe it's a lack of coping mechanisms for stress, looking for external things to make us happy, this need for comfort, and really wanting to change how we feel. And so when we take alcohol out of the picture, and it's just something to be aware of, it's not something to freak out over, but when we take alcohol out of the picture with something that produces so much dopamine, we're going to naturally want to seek that out. And so I know for me, mine was exercise. Whether I knew it or not, in 2009, I wasn't drinking that much. So this is before I ultimately got sober. But I wasn't drinking that much, but I was definitely over exercising. And so I would exercise for probably 3 to 4 hours a day. I would really restrict what I was eating. got to a really low weight. And so I would rarely drink, but I would focus so much on going to the gym. And I felt like if I could not work out, I would freak out. And I focused so much on that. I had no idea what was happening, and I was doing so well. I was feeling so good. So sometimes we don't even know that it's happening until much later. And now kind of currently I've noticed it a little bit with work and also kind of in my phone usage. And I think a lot of people can attest to this, is I waste so many hours on my phone, especially at night, just scrolling, and it's so addictive. And so again, just some things to be aware of, some signs that you may be cross-addicting into a certain area is you're doing it longer than expected. Maybe you've tried to cut down and you can't. Maybe you have, but more often than not, you can't. Maybe you have cravings to use. Like especially with my exercise, I would really feel this need to work out. Maybe you do that despite the consequences that happen. You may feel some shame after doing it. But I think above all else, just being aware of those things that you want to cut back on, that you feel a little bit of shame after you do it, is the first step.
I love that. Yeah, you said sometimes you feel shame after it. Just a little anecdote here. It was actually just yesterday. I was making the kiddos breakfast, and I was also multitasking on my phone. There was an email that I was just trying to get to. I didn't have to be on my phone at the time. I'm on it. I'm getting impatient and frustrated because my kids were wanting my attention, and I'm starting to feel a little bit of tension there towards them, which is not fair to them. And my wife right up to me, God bless her, and she goes, "Hey, sweetheart, I think you shouldn't be on your phone with the kids in the room, okay?" And that was just my little, and I felt, oh gosh, like I know that's a goal of mine, and I try to prioritize it, but you just go, you reach for it sometimes, right? And it really, if underneath it for me, it was because I was impatient and even a little bit anxious towards following up with something that was unresolved. And because it's there, I just had to grab it. And then I felt like, oh gosh, I'm not being the best dad I can in the moment. So last question for you, Jen. You've already given so many good tips and advice, practical things that people can do to better their lives, right? But for that person who is sitting there and is wanting to take a first step towards cutting alcohol out, I like to use the word bulletproofing, but what are some kind of tangible bulletproof habits that they can do today to fortify themselves and maybe their environment to have a successful, let's just say, first week or two without alcohol? What would your advice be?
Yeah, good question. I think above all else is to get reading. Start reading up. Even before you go alcohol free, start reading about sobriety, start reading some Quitlet. I always recommend The Naked Mind to start by Annie Grace. It's my favorite sobriety book. I also recommend Beyond Booze by Sarah Rusbatch. That was a really good one that just released, or The Unexpected Joy of Being Sober. But learn how others have done it. Get curious about what alcohol can do to you. Some resources, some tips and tricks before you go alcohol free. And even continuing, it's still something I do every single day. Every single day I read 10 pages of personal development because I'm on this constant, continual path of growth. And I think reading and starting that in 2017, 4 years into my sobriety, completely changed my outlook on life. So identify, what do you want to learn about? And especially if you're in your first 30, 60, 90 days, make that some Quitlet. You can Google the best sober books or just get started with something and go from there and can make that your job. Movement, getting outside, going for walks. If you haven't worked out in a long time, just going on a 10-minute walk, 20-minute walk daily if you can, if not every other day, is going to help dramatically. Drinking pure, clean, natural water. And I know it sounds so simple. I think it's simple to do. It's also simple to not do. I think we can get so focused on like coffee and these sugary drinks, and mocktails and things like that, but making sure you're drinking half your body weight in ounces of water every single day. Now, those are 3. And now I could give you many more, but I don't want to overwhelm people, is that the reading, the movement, and the water are really key areas. And to also, especially in your first week, really prioritize sleep. You're going to be really, really tired, no matter how much alcohol you drank. If you're just an occasional drinker to gray area drinker, you're going to be really tired that first week, even that first month to 2 months. And so honor your sleep as much as possible above anything else, above exercise. If you are not getting sleep, that is where your focus should go. Take naps, go to bed early, get some calming tea, take a warm bath at night, prioritize sleep as much as possible.
I love it. And you know what I particularly love about your first recommendation to educate yourself and read? It's think about it like this, right? You're not going to run your first marathon without learning about like heart rate and pacing and flexibility and mobility. You're not just going to go start running. You're going to read about it first. You're not going to go on an overnight backpacking trip in the Rocky Mountains without like plotting out your course and learning what to pack and what to cook and what to eat. So like educating yourself. I love that. It was a great answer. So last question, I lied. So, looking forward into 2024, we're halfway through the year. What's next for you? What are you excited about? Some things you're working on? And of course, where would you point people to find and follow you?
Yes. So lots of things coming up. I am coming out with a sober journal at the end of this year, a 100-day sober journal to guide you in your first 100 days of sobriety. So that is set to launch in December. And I also have a retreat coming up for women. So if you would like to join us, it's going to be the first week of October. And if you're part of the membership, you can join us. And it's going to be so amazing. It's going to be at this resort where there's going to be beach yoga, sessions with me. There's going to be weights and just mocktail hour, mocktail tastings, just a great way to meet women and connect and have sober fun. It's truly a life changing experience. And then I'm going to be coming out with my 30-day program to kickstart you into your journey of talking you through withdrawals, getting you through those first 30 days, and then going into the challenge where we instill these 6 habits that I'm so passionate about the water, the movement, the reading, the gratitude, checking in, all of those things to help you, again, feel your best during some of the most tempting months of the year, October, November, December, of just think of, instead of kind of drinking during the holidays, of getting a head start, starting your new year in October, of how good you're going to feel heading into 2025, already on this jump start to, again, feeling your best because you started 90 days, the last 90 days of 2024. So that'll be coming out at the end of this year as well. And then I also have my membership, which is ongoing all the time for women, where we have daily meetings. I coach monthly. We have guest speakers. We have workouts. There's a book club. There's nutrition. There's all the things that you can join. And so, and that's what I really hope to instill, is I wanted to make this a fun and positive and make sobriety, have a fun way to do it. I want to make this a fun experience, and to do that with a get-to mindset of, I get to do this, I get to do that. And so that's really what the membership is about. But you can find me on Instagram, is really where I like to hang out, at Jen Lee Hirst. And you can go to my website at joinlighthousesobriety.com for some more information of all of those things that are coming up.
Wow. I love it. And we'll do our part to promote, and we'll link to all of these resources and these locations as well. Jen, look, just getting to know you, you've got a a powerful story, a transformative story. You're very gifted in speaking and you have so much to offer. And I can totally see and understand why you're so successful in that you're reaching so many people. So thank you for joining us, Jen. You're incredible. We really appreciate you coming.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Jen Hirst, everybody. All right, everybody. That's the show, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Sober Strength podcast and spending some time with us today. We've got a favor to ask. If you enjoyed the show, would you please consider subscribing to the show and even leaving a rating and review? That simple act drastically helps us reach more people in our mission to help them live better, longer, healthier lives. You can also follow us if you'd like on Instagram and YouTube for regular tips and motivation around mental health, addiction, and so much more. Know that your support fuels our brand and is greatly appreciated. So until next time, stay strong and live deep.